Let me ask you the question you actually came here for, and let me promise to answer it with a real yes or a real no by the end of this video. Is Florida still worth it for retirement anymore in 2026? Not was it worth it in 2019. Not is it worth it for a 30-year-old buying a starter home. Is it worth it right now for you if you are planning to spend the last third of your life here? And I am going to do this with no soft soap and no fear-mongering, because both of those are useless to you. There are channels that will tell you Florida is over, and there are agents who will tell you it is paradise, and both of them want something from you. I want to give you the one number that actually decides the answer, the number that almost nobody explains before you sign, and then hand the decision back to you with your eyes fully open. Here's where I am going to land, so you know this is not a bait and switch. My answer is yes, Florida is still worth it for retirement. But that yes comes with one condition, one line on one document, and if you ignore that line, you can turn the best decision of your retirement into a bill that follows you until the day you sell. So the real question is not whether Florida is worth it. It is whether the specific community you are about to buy into is worth it, and there is exactly one place that answer is hiding. Let me show you the villain, because once you see it on a tax bill, you will never not see it again. And it starts with a gap that almost nobody measures. When you look up a home in one of these communities on Zillow, you see a price and maybe an estimated monthly payment built from that price and the mortgage. What you do not see anywhere on that listing is the charge I am about to describe. Zillow shows you what the home is worth. It does not show you what the land underneath it owes. And in a master-planned community, those can be two very different stories. In master-planned communities all across Florida, the kind built specifically for people 55 and older, there is a charge that does not work like your mortgage and does not work like your regular property taxes. On your annual tax bill, down below the familiar part, there is a section labeled non-ad-valorem assessments. Ad valorem means according to value, so those are your normal taxes tied to what your home is worth. Non-ad valorem means the opposite. These charges have nothing to do with your home's value at all. They are flat fees attached to the land, and the biggest one hiding in that section, in community after community, is the bond. Here is what the bond actually is, in plain English, because most of my audience has seen this word on a tax bill and never once had it explained. When a developer builds one of these communities, somebody has to pay for the roads, the sewers, the streetlights, the stormwater ponds, the gate, the clubhouse, and the pool before a single resident moves in. Instead of paying for all of that up front and folding it into the home price, the community forms its own tiny local government called a community development district, and that district borrows the money by selling bonds. Then every homeowner inside the district pays back a slice of that borrowed money every year as a line on the tax bill. That is the bond. It is a mortgage on the neighborhood itself, and you are one of the co-signers whether you understood that or not. Now here is the part that turns a normal cost into the villain of this video. For decades, every buyer in these communities was told the same comforting thing. Do not worry about the bond, it expires. It is only for 20 or 30 years and then it is gone. And on paper that was true. The original bonds do have an end date. But listen to what actually happens as one of these communities ages, because this is the whole story. When the original infrastructure wears out, and after 25 or 30 years of Florida sun and rain, it absolutely does. The roads crack, the pipes fail, the pumps die, the clubhouse needs a new roof. Somebody has to pay to replace all of it. And the district does the exact same thing it did the first time. It borrows the money again. It refinances the old bonds, or it issues brand new ones for the replacements. And that new debt becomes a new line on your tax bill, sometimes right as the old one was supposed to disappear. The bond you were promised would end simply gets reborn under a new name. For the retiree who planned their whole budget around that bill going away at year 30, it never goes away at all. And there is a second edge to this that hits you when you try to leave. Say you are the responsible buyer who paid the bond down, or even paid it off early in a lump sum. You would think that makes your home worth more when you sell. It largely does not. The bond payoff does not add to your sale price the way a renovated kitchen would, because the next buyer is comparing your home to the one down the street that looks identical for the same money. So the owner who quietly paid off a $14,000 bond and the owner who did not can list at nearly the same price, and the diligent one simply absorbs the loss. Meanwhile, in an older community, a buyer who does the math and sees a heavy renewed assessment can walk away entirely, which thins your buyer pool right when you need to sell. The bond does not just cost you while you live there. It can quietly cost you again on the way out. That is the trap. Not the bond itself, which is a normal and reasonable way to build a community. The trap is being told it ends when, in the oldest and most established communities, it quietly renews. So let me count down the real communities where you can see this happening, and then I will give you the verdict and the exact line to check before you ever sign. Let me start with the honest orientation number 5, which is really a category rather than one town. The typical Florida bond assessment runs somewhere between $1,000 and $4,000 a year on top of everything else. And you need to understand these do not move together. A brand new community has a bond at its absolute maximum because the debt was just issued and has 30 years to run. A community from the early 2000s might be near the end of its original bond, which sounds like good news, right up until the replacement debt arrives. So counterintuitively, a 15-year-old community can sometimes carry a heavier true cost than a brand new one because it is paying the tail end of the old bond and the front end of the new one at the same time. Age does not equal cheap. Keep that in your head as we go. The single most expensive mistake I see is a buyer who finds an older, established community, assumes the bond must be nearly gone because the place has been around for 20 years, and never asks the one question that would have revealed the renewed debt sitting right there on the bill. Established feels safe. On a bond, established can be the warning sign. Number 4 is Lakewood Ranch over near Sarasota and Bradenton, one of the best-selling master-planned communities in the entire country, and a place enormous numbers of retirees genuinely love. I want to be fair to it because it earns a lot of that love. But the district assessments here commonly run between roughly $1,600 and $3,000 a year, and Lakewood Ranch is not one district, it is many, layered across a huge footprint built over decades. Which means the community you tour today could be sitting on a young bond at full price, or an older one heading toward its own replacement cycle, and the brochure will not tell you which. Same name on the sign, completely different number on the tax bill from one neighborhood to the next. In a place this big, you cannot judge the cost by the logo. You have to judge it by the parcel. Number 3 is Waterlefe in East Manatee, and this one is the clearest proof of the whole mechanism, straight from the district's own records. Waterlefe's homes date back to around 2001, so by the old promise, the original bond should be ancient history by now. Instead, residents were paying a median of roughly $3,849 a year in district fees. Why so high on a community this old? Because the district refinanced its original bond in the middle of the last decade and then issued additional new debt a few years later to renovate the community's own facilities, including its golf amenities. So the people who bought expecting the bond to be winding down instead watched it get refinanced and topped up with fresh borrowing. This is not a rumor or a broker's scare story. It is in the district's published bond documents. Waterlefe is what it looks like in black and white when the bond that was supposed to end simply does not. And it is worth pausing on why that renovation debt matters so much for a retiree specifically. The maintenance portion of these assessments, the part that keeps the golf course mowed and the clubhouse open, cannot be paid off and never expires. So when an aging community votes to borrow for a facility renovation, it is not a one-time hit. It resets the baseline of a bill you will pay every year for as long as you own the home on a fixed income, whether or not you ever set foot on that golf course. The people most likely to be squeezed by an amenity renovation are often the ones least likely to still be using the amenity. And if this is the kind of thing you desperately wish someone had explained to your parents before they bought, or to you, tap the like button for me. It genuinely pushes this in front of the next person about to sign a contract, and that is the entire reason I make these. Number 2 is Venetian River Club up in North Venice, and Venetian is the one that should end the argument for good. This is a beautiful, gated, amenity-rich community, and it was first built more than 2 decades ago. 20-plus years in, by everything these buyers were told, this should be one of the cheapest communities to carry on the whole Gulf Coast. the bond should be nearly paid off. Instead, the median district assessment here now runs above $4,000 a year, more than $4,000 every single year, on homes old enough that the original debt should have been fading into memory. That is the villain at full strength. A community does not get cheaper to carry as it ages the way a mortgage does. It hits a wall, the infrastructure comes due, the district borrows again, and the oldest, most established, most desirable communities can end up with some of the highest ongoing assessments in the state. Venetian River Club is the proof that established does not mean paid off. And here is the question I want you holding as we reach number 1, because it reframes this whole decision. You have been trained your entire life to think a home gets cheaper to own as you pay it down. A mortgage shrinks. A bond in these communities can do the opposite. It can be at its lowest right when you buy and climb as the community ages around you. So the real question is not what does this home cost today? It is what will it cost me at 80 on a fixed income after the district has borrowed again? Keep that in mind because number 1 is where that question gets its loudest answer. And understanding exactly this, which Florida communities are genuinely worth retiring into and which ones carry a bill that never shows up in the listing price, is the whole reason the Florida Buy and Avoid list for 2026 exists. It lays out 40 Florida towns, 20 to buy and 20 to avoid, in one place, with the real cost of ownership checked on every single one. The link is sitting in the description right below this video. If you want the full map before you commit to anywhere, that is where it lives. And that brings us to number 1, the biggest name in American retirement, the single most searched retirement destination in the country, and the community where this entire structure is not a footnote, it is the whole design. The Villages. Let me be careful and fair here, because millions of people adore this place, and a lot of them are watching, and they are not wrong to love it. The Villages works. It is astonishingly well run, but it is also the purest example in existence of what I have been describing. And if you understand the money here, you understand it everywhere. Because in the Villages, you are not paying one hidden charge, you are paying 3, and most buyers blur them into one and get a nasty surprise. The first is the bond, the debt on your specific home's infrastructure. On a newer home, especially in the growing areas south of the main highway, that bond can start at well over $14,000 in total, paid down as an annual line on your tax bill for decades. The second is the CDD maintenance assessment, which is separate, which pays to maintain the common areas, and which by its own rules can rise year to year based on the budget and never ends as long as the home exists. And the third is the amenity fee, currently around $199 a month for a new buyer, which covers the golf and the pools and the recreation centers, and which also continues indefinitely and adjusts over time. Now stack those honestly. A newer home in the Villages can carry a large bond that runs for decades, plus a maintenance assessment that never expires, plus an amenity fee of roughly $2,400 a year that never expires either. And as the Villages keeps expanding into brand new districts, each new area issues its own fresh bonds, which is the mechanism from every other town on this list operating at the largest scale in the country. North of the older boundary, many bonds are indeed paid off, and those homes are genuinely cheaper to carry, which is exactly the point. 2 homes in the Villages that look identical, that cost nearly the same to buy, can have completely different lifetime costs, depending entirely on which district they sit in and where that district is in its bond cycle. The Villages is not a warning against the Villages, it is the clearest classroom in Florida for the one skill you actually need. So now, let me actually answer the question in the title because I promised you a real answer, and here it is. Is Florida still worth it for retirement in 2026? Yes. Genuinely, yes, and here is why the yes survives everything you just heard. Florida still has no state income tax, which for a retiree drawing on savings and pensions is an enormous permanent advantage that quietly gives back thousands every year. Put a real number on it. A couple pulling $70,000 or $80,000 a year from retirement accounts in a state with an income tax can hand over several $1,000s annually just for the privilege of living there. In Florida, that line is 0, and it is 0 every year for the rest of your life. That single fact can outweigh a bond assessment entirely. which is exactly why the answer is yes and not no. It still has the weather that made it the retirement capital of the country, and no bond assessment changes the fact that it does not snow. It still has the largest population of people your age anywhere in America, which means the social life, the clubs, the activities, and the medical infrastructure built for retirees are unmatched. And once you buy and claim your homestead, Florida caps how much your assessed value can rise each year, so your ordinary property taxes cannot suddenly balloon out from under you the way a renewed bond can. That protection is real, and it is one of the quiet reasons the people who moved here decades ago never left. The state genuinely rewards the retiree who plants roots and stays put. And here is the part the doom videos never tell you. Because so many buyers are finally waking up to these carrying costs, sellers are adjusting, homes are sitting longer on Redfin's data, and a prepared buyer today has more room to negotiate than at any point in years. The nervousness in this market is your leverage, but that yes is conditional. And the condition is not vague, it is one specific action. Before you sign anything on any home in any of these communities, you pull the actual tax bill for that exact parcel, and you read the non-ad-valorem section line by line. Not the community's average, not the brochure, not what the agent tells you the fees are, the real bill for the real parcel in writing. Those records are public, they are kept by the county tax collector, and any honest seller can produce them in an afternoon. That single line tells you the bond, the maintenance, and everything else attached to that specific home, and it is the difference between the retirement you dreamed of and the one that quietly drains you. So here is exactly what to do, and it takes one phone call and about 10 minutes of reading. Ask for the most recent tax bill for the parcel and find the non-ad valorem assessments. Ask 3 direct questions about the bond. How much is the annual bond payment? How many years are left on it? And has this district refinanced or issued any new bonds in the last few years? Then ask whether there is a separate ongoing maintenance assessment and a separate amenity fee, because in the biggest communities there are all 3, and you need the total, not the label. And ask one more question that separates the informed buyer from everyone else. Ask to see the district's most recent budget and whether the board has discussed any upcoming borrowing for infrastructure or amenity replacement. That conversation happens in public meetings long before it lands on a tax bill. And if a new bond is coming, the minutes will usually say so. You are trying to find out not just what the assessment is today, but what it is about to become. Add every one of those to your mortgage and your insurance, and now you are looking at the true monthly cost of that retirement. Do that, and Florida is absolutely worth it. Skip it, and you are signing a contract you have not actually read. And you can start that check yourself, tonight, before you call anyone. When you find a home you like on Zillow or Redfin, do not stop at the price and the payment estimate, because neither one includes the bond. Note the year the community was built and the year that specific home was built, because that tells you roughly where it sits in the bond cycle. Then look at how long comparable homes in that community have been sitting, because a community where listings pile up and prices keep getting cut is often one where buyers are quietly running the assessment math and walking. The listing sites will not hand you the bond figure, but they will hand you every clue you need to know which questions to ask before you fall in love. The honest verdict, said plainly, is this: Florida did not stop being worth it. It stopped being simple. The people who regret retiring here are almost never the ones who understood the bond and bought anyway. They are the ones who were told it would end, believed it, and never checked the line where the truth was printed the whole time. You are now not one of those people, and that is the entire point of this video. The bond was never the villain. Being kept in the dark about it was. So here is my question for you, and I read every single one of these. If you live in one of these communities or any master planned community in Florida, go pull your own tax bill and tell me in the comments what your non-ad valorem line actually says. The bond, the maintenance, all of it, and which community you are in. There are people watching right now who are about to buy in your exact neighborhood, and 30 seconds of honesty from you is worth more than anything I can put on a chart. And if this was useful, the video you want next is the one on the Florida towns quietly hitting record highs this year, because they are almost all older single-family, no-district communities, the exact opposite of the bond trap you just learned to spot. Go watch that one next. And subscribe to FloridaPulse, because I go through these numbers community by community every month, and I will keep showing you exactly where the real cost is hiding long before you ever sign for it. We will see you in the next one.